Oxidative stress. It's part of an effect of aging, and it can be an effect of poor lifestyle, even overtraining or over exercise. In this episode, I talk with a true science geek. We break it down. In this episode, we talk about how to encourage natural hair growth, reduce gray hair, boost libido, and reduce fine lines around the eyes and mouth. Are you hearing me now? Now, my science guy didn't lead with that, so you have to listen to the end when we get to the juicy stuff. But this is definitely an episode that will help you expand your tools for aging optimally. I'm Deborah Atkinson. You're listening to Flipping 50, where I address your top struggles and concerns. But most of all, what we hope to do here is inspire you to inspire yourself. I share what to eat, how to move, and how to change your mindset sometimes about what to eat and how to move so you can have the energy and vitality that you want, need, and deserve in the second and better half. And listen, if you're not doing any exercise right now, I have the perfect start, restart, or reset. If you are moving, but it's not working, you're just more tired. So it's called the 5-day flip. You can get in right now. I'll put the link to that in the show notes. And let's get started. So my guest today is Ken Swartz, aka Ken the Scientist. He's the founder and chief officer of C60 Purple Power, a health and wellness company committed to delivering the highest quality C60 products available. Ken earned a Master of Science degree from University of Colorado at Denver and a Bachelor of Science in Economics from Arizona State University. He spent the early part of his career as a secondary teacher and is passionate about helping and educating people. Ken has run several research science laboratories over the course of his career and discovered C60 while developing the MOXY fusion reactor. During his research, he became aware of the powerful free radical neutralizing properties of C60. Now, bear with me. Free radicals, you know that those are damaging, right? Ken first began using C60 as a radiation protectant while leading a fusion reactor project. He noticed after taking C60 for a couple of months that not only was it protecting him from the radiation, but it was also improving his overall health. So he continued taking it. About 8 months after Ken started taking C60, he was at a routine visit with his optometrist and discovered that his dry macular degeneration was gone. The doctor was dumbfounded, told him that in all his years, he had never seen such a miraculous outcome. Due to his healing experience, he decided to dedicate himself to the research, study, and production of C60 Buckminster fullerene products. In 2016, Ken founded C60 Purple Power, which offers C60 made with certified organic oils and 99.99% pure sublimated carbon 60, never exposed to solvents and sourced in the U.S. Ken believes that your health is your responsibility, and he's on a mission to help people feel empowered to take back control of their health. You're going to love this episode, and it is a little rich in science at the beginning, but bear with me because we tell Ken's story, we tell other stories, and then we get to the juicy little tidbits about gray hair and getting rid of those fine lines and wrinkles. Ken, thanks so much for being here.
I'm glad to be on. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. Well, okay. My audience is going to love this. So first of all, let's start at the very beginning for any listener who needs just a vocabulary review. Let's talk about oxidative stress and let's define it for our listeners.
Well, oxidative stress is essentially your body rusting.
Not a
And
pretty sight. No.
yes, no, it isn't. And the things that happen, basically what you got, oxidation is like your rust iron combines with an oxygen, and you get like the red color, the rust. And the same sort of thing happens in the body. You have things like superoxide. That's an oxygen with an extra electron. And well, that definitely rusts your body. There's also the hydroxyl ion. That's basically an water molecule. It's got an oxygen molecule, a hydrogen, and it's missing one of the hydrogens. So all it's got is a free electron, and that also causes oxidative damage. And there's some other species, peroxynitrite and stuff. And what basically happens as your body rusts, well, for instance, those oxidative radicals can cross-link proteins. And proteins usually have to fold to do their jobs. They're kind of complicated affairs. And if you get a cross-link between two parts of the protein that shouldn't be there, it can't fold properly and do its job. So now that protein doesn't work. And you have things like and oxidative stress can punch holes in the cellular membranes and in the mitochondria membrane, so things can leak out that shouldn't or leak in that shouldn't. And obviously that's bad. And then finally, oxidative damage can damage the RNA and the DNA, which are the blueprints of your cell. And if that happens, well, the cell can't really repair itself because it's lost the blueprint.
Okay, so let's talk about now oxidative stress and the aging process.
Oh, well, that's kind of what it is. One of the common things that a measure of aging is a thing called the telomeres, and they're little DNA sequences that wrap around the end of your chromosomes. And then every time your chromosomes divide, they get a little shorter. Now, ideally, if you lived in a perfectly oxidative, stress-free environment, you'd lose like 20 units a time. But because the actual oxidative levels that we live in, we lose somewhere between, the average is 50 to 100 for every division. So eventually the telomeres get too short and the cells can't divide and they go senescent. And that's kind of one of the signs or measurements that you can make of aging.
Can we talk just a little bit about lifestyle habits? Let's talk about different types of exercise in oxidative stress.
Well, exercise is a generally good thing for you. You need to do it.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Thank you, baby Jesus. Good.
Yeah, sometimes people can overdo it. And in the mitochondria are little organelles inside your cells. And they're kind of like the furnaces, the powerhouse of the cell. They make ATP, which is the energy molecule of your cell. And but they also produce all kinds of oxidative radicals, especially superoxide and occasional hydroxyl ion. And so, when your body normally has a good level of antioxidants, it can take care of this. And but when you exercise a lot, it can cause some oxidative damage. And that's like if you really exercise a lot, like a day or two later, you're feeling sore and achy.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially the oxidative damage that's been done to your body, and now your body is kind of repairing it. So
love it. Yes. Okay, for listeners, you girls, hang with me here. Yes, we have the science geek here with me, but we're going to break down everything he's saying, so it's very practical. And basically, he just emphasized the fact that overdoing that cardio, that endurance exercise, is actually not a good thing for aging. So I know that 30 and 40 years of conditioning, thinking that's what you ought to be doing, is hard to lose. However, less is more. Making what you're doing more effective and doing it in shorter amounts of time is a plus, gives you that antioxidant state in that kind of immune boost, if you will, but doing too much will tip the scale in the other direction. Okay, so now we've talked in the intro, they heard me talk about C60. So tell us more about what is C60, first of all, and why the scientists who discovered it won a Nobel Prize. This is kind of a big deal.
Yes, and it's a podcast, so we'll have to use our imaginations. But carbon 60 is a molecule of 60 carbon atoms, and it's shaped exactly like a little soccer ball. Mm-hmm. And it's about 0.7 nanometers, so it's very small. And what happens is it was discovered in 1985 by Harry Kroto, Richard Smalley, and Robert Curl, and that it actually solved a mystery in astronomy. C60 is made in the atmospheres of giant red stars, and it's a big molecule. And they'd been seeing something absorbed in the infrared bands, and That's people had speculated on what it was, but these guys finally discovered what it was, but they actually got a Nobel Prize in chemistry in 1996 because it's kind of like a new type of molecule. It's got that kind of round cage-like structure. It's like that little soccer ball structure, which really hadn't no molecule like that had ever been discovered in nature before, and so it was really hard to make. But it wasn't until the early 2000s that they'd figure out methods to make it. And when they started doing testing for toxicity, because after all, this is a molecule found in outer space, it's also found like in the burnt wick of your candle, like 0.25% of that burnt wick is C60. And when they tested on animals, it increased their lifespan by 90% over controls.
And we're talking quality life?
Yes, and that's the thing. Yeah, they used Wistar rats, which are kind of wimpy rats. They usually die of cancers and other diseases associated with aging. But when they took C60, they just lived long, healthy lives till they got kind of to their genetic expiration date. And they also did like a study in mice, and they found it also increased lifespan of mice. But these mice were kind of designed to have cognitive decline, and they didn't suffer any cognitive decline. They ran them through little mazes to measure how their brains were working.
Fantastic. Okay. And listeners, you don't know this, but before we got started, AKA in the green room, I said to Ken, because, I rarely put a topic or something about a supplement in front of you and talk about it without having tried it, without knowing what I'm talking about or why. So this is for me, I believe it's day 6 on C60. So I am trying it. And I said to Ken, so what should I be experiencing right now? What can I expect in these first few days? And sometimes I think as a fitness pro or health coach, it gets a little hard to distinguish, like, is that happening because of this or not? So I asked him, and Ken, if you would repeat what you told me.
Well, what your people usually notice within the first week or so is an increase in mental clarity, and then along with an increase in energy. Those are the first things that people will notice, and that's because C60 is a superoxide dismutase mimic, which it's basically what it means. It means your mitochondria, which make the ATP, which is the energy molecule or cell, are going to go back to a higher level of function. And once you have more energy molecules in your cells, well, then you have more energy. And so, like the brain fog goes away, you have mental clarity, you get like the energy. And then eventually you'll also start noticing like an increase in motivation. And part of that is because C60 also suppresses inflammation. It's when you suppress inflammation, it increases dopamine production. So that's kind of the motivation molecule. It's the molecule that gets you out of the bed in the morning.
Fantastic. Okay. There's a lot of women who would love some of that. So you got to know, and maybe you do. I think this is probably a worldwide global thing, but for this audience specifically, one of the number one things that I will hear from women who may be on the fringes of this audience and community is, I just don't have any motivation. I don't have any discipline. I'm not motivated. So this is special sauce here for sure. So let me ask you this. So I have to play devil's advocate because almost anything that you might take, if it were over the counter or it were prescription, would have a negative side effect. Any negative side effects to C60?
Well, there is one there's a counterindication we let people know of. If one of the things that C60 does is it restores function in your hormone-producing organs and tissues. Mm-hmm. And so if you're taking a blood thinner, mm-hmm. the C60 will probably increase the mineralocorticoid production in your adrenal glands, which kind of regulates blood thickness. So your blood may become too thin. So if you are taking a blood thinner, mm-hmm. You probably want to talk to your doctor before you take C60, so you can get more testing and adjust the medication. And in the hormone replacement, it does do that, but a little bit slower. Like we had one of us, Sierra. She was she after about 3 years of using C60, she was able to get off like 2/3 of her thyroid medicine. And we've had lots of other reports from customers. It's part of that is C60 stimulates. It causes apoptosis in senescent cells. Those are like zombie cells. They've kind of come to the end of their life, but they're just kind of hanging on, draining resources.
Mm-hmm.
C60 gets in there. It causes apoptosis, which is programmed cell death, which is non-inflammatory. And then they're replaced by stem cells, which have a whole set of telomeres and can function. They're like baby cells that turn into new working cells. And so that sort of, our bodies kind of replace themselves every 7 years. So as your organs and tissues replace themselves, the new cells that you get are more functioning, and so you get a better benefit from them.
Fantastic. Okay. So how is C60 different from, say, other antioxidants?
Well, one of the things about C60, it only interacts with two oxidative radicals. And as I mentioned before, that's the superoxide, which is that oxygen with an extra electron, and which is the most damaging oxidative radical in the body. And then it reacts with the hydroxyl ion, which is the second most damaging oxidative radical in the body. And that's really all it interacts with. It doesn't, for instance, interact, like the body uses some oxidative radicals as signaling molecules, like the nitrogen oxides. That's what dilates your capillaries and contracts them depending on concentration.
Mm-hmm.
And also hydrogen peroxide. The body uses that as a signaling molecule, and then there's some based around sulfur, iron, and zinc, and that the body uses. And these are oxidative radicals. It's kind of, you have a balance of oxidative radicals and antioxidants, and that. But since C60 doesn't interfere with the signaling molecule, it has no toxicity at any level. They, for instance, did a test where they gave rats 1 gram per kilogram of body weight, which is 10,000 times what has been found to be a healthy, beneficial dose in other scientific studies, and it had no toxicity. Now, if you tried that with vitamin E or vitamin A, it probably would have killed those rats, because a lot of those antioxidants that people talk about, like A, E, NAC, if you take too much of them, it's a bad thing because it'll interfere with those signaling molecules in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be careful. But with C60, because C60 only interacts with the two most damaging oxidative radicals in the body, which the body doesn't use as signaling molecules, it really has no toxicity at any level.
Very cool. And I'm just imagining women listening to this, and I think everybody wants to know, well, what form is it in? So let's just talk a little bit about literally what is it like, when it's sitting on your counter and you go to get it out of the cabinet, how you actually consume it.
Okay, C60 has no solubility in water, so it has to be dissolved in an oil. And we've kind of picked the Goldilocks of oils. It's in all our oils are organic. It's an olive oil, of course. We all know about the Mediterranean diet,
Mm-hmm.
and avocado oil, and we also have an MCT coconut oil. MCT means medium chain triglycerides,
Mm-hmm.
and those are turned into ketones by your liver very rapidly, so your cells can use them as a flex fuel source. And so that's kind of the basis of ketosis. And so but people with glucose processing issues or athletes really like the MCT coconut oil.
Yeah, really do. And I really like the cinnamon flavor that I'm dropping into my coffee.
Yes, yes. We do have
Can you
several
just
flavors.
ship over a truckload of that, please? That's so far my favorite. Yeah. Okay. So why C60 Purple Power? Does that have to do with the carrier oils or something else?
Oh no, when in MCT coconut oil is perfectly clear. It's it's like water, right? And so when you add C60 to MCT coconut oil, it turns it a purple color.
Mm.
Because C60 dissolved in an oil is purple. So that's kind of where the name came from.
Perfect. And it makes me think about Barney, but that just tells you the age and era where my children grew up. And that makes me throw up a little bit. So I'm so glad you put a different context around it. Can you share a couple of success stories? I mean, what have you seen and heard happen that have really just stayed with you?
Well, I'll share you mine, and then I'll maybe read one from someone that's not too typical. But in my case, I was actually working on a metal oxygen fusion reactor project. And so I was looking at, I was in charge, so I was looking at something to protect myself and the crew from this radiation source. And I came across this stuff called carbon 60. And, they gave carbon 60 to one set of rats, didn't give it to the other, that's the control rats. They hit them with a fatal dose of radiation. all the C60 rats live, where the control rats, all immediately died. So when I learned that, I got a couple of sources of C60, and my crew and myself were taking it during the experiment, which we're still all around, so that worked. And but about I kept taking it because the afternoon blahs went away. Right, you eat lunch and you want to go to sleep. That kind of went
Hmm.
away. Also also like little aches and pains. I used to race motorcycles, had a few wrecks, so the little aches and pains kind of went away too. And what's really interesting, about 8 months after I started taking C60, I went into my eye doctor, and my macular degeneration had completely disappeared.
Wow.
And that also happened after I learned about that. I made up a thing in MCT coconut oil for my friend Gary Rodriguez. He was an electrical engineer on the project, and he had wet macular degeneration, which was caused by his type 2 diabetes. And after about a year and a half of taking a tablespoon a day of C60 and MCT oil, his wet macular degeneration completely healed, and his type 2 diabetes went away.
You so far, so just 2 out of 2, you mentioned both times men. Have you seen a difference in the results for men and women?
Oh,
Was
sure.
that just purely coincidence that you both are men?
Well, because we were both guys working on it. But
Yeah.
well, here I have one here. Here's one. This is from M. She's Ellis. She's age 52. I was able to get back to work as a massage therapist and got my life back together after taking C60 Purple Power for a few weeks. And
Wow.
now I'm pain free in my joints and muscles, feeling happier, and my brain is sharper as well. I love C60 Purple Power, and I'll take it for the rest of my life. I'm eternally grateful for you. Much love from Maui. Aloha.
Oh my goodness. Let's go see her. I think
Yes,
we should
and
do a field trip.
yes, and then so we have a few others that like that. So it does the same for both men and women, because what C60 does, it works at the cellular level, and the difference between basically men and women and even test animals at the cellular level is really insignificant.
Interesting. And so there's another place my mind is going, and it's this. So I'm I'm just curious about the level of kind of already exploring ways and methods to enhance someone's health. I mean, people who begin to take C60 Purple Power, are they probably already on a journey? They're already eating well. They're already trying to exercise, change their sleep habits, and do the right thing. And maybe only getting so far and then beginning Purple Power. Can you just describe, or has this been tried on anybody, any circumstance, not necessarily all that healthy, and then try this?
Yes, we all of those circumstances exist for people that use our product C60 Purple Power, but it's basically the most of our customer base are people that have tried the traditional medical system
Hmm.
for some health problem and really haven't got satisfactory results. Because allopathic medicine is great if you're cut, burned, or poisoned, but it really isn't very effective with degenerative diseases. And so usually people have had a little bit of health problems, or they've gotten older, and things aren't working so as well. And those are the people that really notice C60 first and find the greatest benefit from it.
That was a mic drop there, I think. Uh,
Oh,
allopathic medicine is great if you're cut, burned, or poisoned. Yeah. Okay. Very cool. I love it. All right, Ken. Well, I have you here. I mean, um, you are a scientist I do not want to let go to waste. Is there a question that I should have asked you? And if I frame that, we're talking to a group of women who's 45 to 70. They're going through menopause. They're probably feeling like their aging right now has accelerated because, in some ways, muscle and bone losses right at menopause do accelerate or have the potential to. What question should I have asked you that I haven't?
well, I suppose maybe something about hormone health,
Okay, fire away.
because that's one of the things. One of the things that C60 does is it restores functionality in the mitochondria. And one of the things the mitochondria make is pregnenolone, which is the precursor molecule for pretty much all the hormones. And so when you take C60, any of the because most of the hormone organs have a lot of mitochondria in them. That's just the way that they are. They're the second most full of mitochondria besides brain cells. And so people, when you take C60, you'll notice things like there'll be more melatonin produced in your pineal gland. So people will get better sleep. Also, your pituitary hypothalamus complex will produce like more human growth hormone or many other master hormones that it produces. And the adrenals are probably some of the ones you see the most of, because a lot of people have what is called pregnenolone steal because they only
Yep.
produce so much. And if you're under stress, it all goes into cortisone and doesn't go into the other hormones. So when you
I'm
take
going to interrupt you for a second. And ladies, if you're trying to do a late day, high intensity exercise, you're also robbing yourself of that pregnenolone. Okay, go. Sorry to
yes,
interrupt, Ken.
no, that's a good point. Yes, and so when you take C60, it restores pregnenolone production in the adrenals, and so now you have enough. Your mineralocorticoid levels go up. That's what regulates blood thickness. Your glucocorticoids go up. That helps balance out the glucose processing in your body, and the androgen levels go up, and which they are turned into testosterone, estrogen, or progesterone in the body depending on who you are. And so all of the kind of hormone levels rise kind of uniformly because the underlying cause has been fixed. And it's just as we get older, our cells the mitochondria don't work as efficiently. So when you take C60, it kind of takes you back 10 years, 10, 15 years or so that you're kind of a bit younger than and everything in so many ways.
And a woman loves that on the inside, but even more so if you could tell her around crow's feet or the cigarette lines around her mouth are going to change.
Oh,
What about
absolutely. That
that?
was actually the very first study of C60.
I love you so much.
Yes, it was done in Japanese women. In Japan they had developed a face cream with C60 in it. You can use our product the same way; it's basically the same thing. And they found that using C60 cream reduced wrinkles and fine lines in Japanese women.
I'm all over that.
Just
Okay.
topical application. And they also did the second one was they found that they applied it topically to hair, and they found that C60 would increase hair growth. And in people suffering from like loss of hair due to things besides male pattern baldness, would stimulate hair growth back. And anybody who takes C60 will tell you, like, they notice that their nails grow faster and their hair grows longer, and kind of there's more of it. And a lot of the gray goes away too.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Quickly becoming one of my favorite interviews. Okay. All right. Now I have to go back here. So ingesting it can still result in those positive
Oh,
changes
yes.
or, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
it's the same thing. Yeah. So either way, I think topically probably gets to the skin faster, but when you take it inside, it'll just go everywhere. And for most people, it's just like a teaspoon in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
If you got a little bit gray hair or a little bit heavier, like I am, I'm about 180. I'm just made 60. About
Mostly
a table.
salt, not so much pepper. Yep.
Yes, I take about a tablespoon a day. So, but you don't really need to ever go beyond that. And also we encourage people to take it in the morning. You can put it in your coffee, or if you haven't ever taken an oil straight before, maybe put it with a little bit of food. And
Mm-hmm.
because C60, when it ramps up those mitochondria, it gives you a little stimulatory effect. So if you
Mm-hmm.
take it late at night, it can keep you up. So that's best to be taken in the morning or at least by noon.
Good. And every woman listening heard that, right? We're all trying to sleep just a little bit better. Oh gosh, Ken, I had a question I was going to ask you on the tip of my tongue and it's escaped me. Um, what was it? Do you know? um, you hit on something that I was going to ask you about, and darn. Okay. So let's kind of, oh, I know what I was going to ask you. Can you take too much? Is this related to weight or size at all? That was it.
Actually, because in the animal studies, they found there was no toxicity at any level. So if
Okay.
you do take too much, you get the zoomies a little bit. That by your mind just gets you just get like a little too full of energy.
Mm-hmm.
So you can, if you get a little bit full of energy during your day and keep going toward nighttime, you can just kind of back it off a little bit. But that's really the other one. The other one is there's usually a significant increase in libido for both men and women. So that's a real common effect that happens pretty quickly.
Okay, from my past experience with a master class we had a couple of years ago that was all about how to boost your libido naturally with exercise and not kill it. It was the most largely attended class, and I had several women saying to me, "My husband can't wait for me to go to this master class." That comment right there could have been the mic drop. So, ladies, unless you want your husband encouraging you to take this, do not let him listen to the podcast. But there you have it. Ken, thank you so much for being here. And I am going to ask that you come back in about a month after I've been taking it so that we can kind of talk about what I've experienced.
I'd glad to do that.
Fantastic. Okay, listeners. So now it's your turn. And we're going to get the chance to employ whatever it is you leave for us. So at the end of the show notes today, I want you to ask, what question would you wish that you had asked Ken, or like me to ask for you? Because when he comes back, we will hit those questions, I promise, as well as literally talk about the changes that I've made. So every day I'm kind of jotting down, here's what I experienced yesterday and the way that I'm feeling, because otherwise it's all too easy to let it blend together. But I can tell you, I have experienced greater clarity, greater focus. So, there is a period of time in the morning when I love to work anyway, but I've noticed I can go a longer period of time without losing that attention, without having it roam somewhere else. And I highly value that. So, what I want you to do is go to the show notes at flipping50.com/oxidative stress and leave a question. Tell me what you'd like me to ask Ken, because he will be back. There's no doubt. So if you've got something, this is your chance. And we're going to come back on and let you know my results. And in the show notes today, you will also find the link. So if you like to be a first responder, the first girl on the block to do it, and I know many of you do, you will find a link also to the C60 so you can try it for yourself. Do it along with me and then come back with us and join us again. What are you waiting for? The world needs you at your best. So let's start flipping 50 today.